Okay, let's say I've got my research topic or my research question and I'm ready to get started looking for information. You can either from the beginning just start with the simple search, putting in a few keywords, or I like to jump right to advanced search because I can start using synonyms right away. But you can start with just a simple search if you want. Let's stick with student athletes. And let's do or college athletes. So these are both terms that could get used to describe a similar group of people in this case. And the or is telling that system either one of those words is fine. Or those, more words in this case. If I put quotation marks around student athletes, it's going to say I want those two terms together. Student and the athletes should be right next to each other in the results. Student athletes is a term that does come back pretty frequently together, and is a pretty specific term phrase. So I'm going to put some quotation marks around that. Could also say salary or pay, or income or compensation. Any of those terms are going to be kind of in the same concept category. So synonyms are all appropriate words I could put with my ors. I've put this on the second line, and this line and this line are both attached to each other with an and, meaning I want something from this and I want something from this category. Another thing I could do would be to add an asterisk after pay in this particular case, because pay could also have an ending of payment. And an asterisk gives the system that option to tells the system I want words that have alternative endings. So that's what that is doing. Another way, or just something to keep in mind when you're putting in terms, is that or is going to give you more stuff and is going to give you less. So if I just did salary, I would probably get a lot fewer things than if we took all of that out. In fact, let's just give that a shot. So if we just said student athletes and salary and searched it, let's see how many results we would get. 1,500. Okay, now let's add that piece back in and see how many that brings back. So partial results found, but we are still getting 10,000. So that's a lot more than we were getting previously. From here, I would start by just limiting maybe to some electronic things that I know I can get my hands on more quickly. I could go to peer-reviewed articles. I could go to just CWU online resources. Down here, I could limit to resource type. I could go to just ebooks or articles. I've got quite a few options. I've even got one film in there, and some DVDs. So this top one that's coming back is an online access, and it looks like it's an ebook. Books can feel kind of like a scary resource to get started with because they do tend to be lengthy, and it feels like maybe you have to read the whole thing. You do not have to read the whole thing with ebooks. Keep in mind you can just skip around and maybe go to the chapter that you need, or the pages that you need, or the section that you need. You don't necessarily have to read the whole thing. Books can be really great for giving you kind of an overview of the topic, especially if you're new to researching in that area. So I would recommend books. The description down here, sometimes you can get a table of contents, or if it's an article, you might get an abstract, and that could be a helpful way to determine whether or not it's going to be related. You also have these subject headings. These are a fun tool to kind of advance your research skills because you can use these to narrow your search. So 10,000 results is kind of a lot, and maybe we want to get a little more specific. So it looks like college athletes is actually a subject term. If I wanted to apply that in my search over here, when we back out, I'm going to add a new line. I'm going to drop down to just subject heading. So I've identified that college athletes is a subject heading. And then we're going to add that in here. Now when I search for it, it should be pulling back things that have college athletes as specifically tagged. And what that does is anything that has that tag, you know that the content in the material is going to be more closely aligned with what I'm looking for. So you can see that book is coming back as a result. I've got a print book here. So if you are having trouble finding electronic resources and you want to get your hands on a physical book, I'm going to need to sign in to see what those options are. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for you. So once I'm signed in, I have different options on this page. You can see request home delivery, recommend purchase as an electronic resource, or request a chapter. I would recommend going through the request a chapter if you're only looking for maybe a small section and you were able to look at the table of contents and say, oh, I need just chapter 2. So back over on my search results page, some other things I might do to try to limit this search would be to head over to these subjects. If this is a topic I previously haven't done much research in, I'm not going to know necessarily what the subject headings should look like. So in this case, I spent a little time thinking about some alternative terms I could use and then putting them up here. But if I really haven't spent that much time on this topic, I might just have student athletes and a salary, and I may be able to search for those two terms. One trick you can use is to look over here for some alternative terms, and then when I click on that, it's going to give me more stuff in that category. So here I can see college athletes is showing up, income is showing up, college sports. So I could click on that to get a little bit more deeper into the search process. So that is what I would recommend using for when you're getting started with your research.